The warning lights on Minu's scanner flashed red. He stared at the readings and felt his heart race. Something was wrong with the dead zone near Jupiter's orbit. Energy signatures that shouldn't exist were appearing on his screen. "This can't be right," he whispered to himself. Minu was a scout captain for the Void Survey Corps. His job was simple: map old star systems and mark dangerous areas. The Sol system was supposed to be empty, dead for almost 20,000 years. Nothing lived here anymore. The humans who once called this place home were gone, extinct. Everyone in the galaxy knew that. But his sensors were picking up something massive coming through a tear in space, a wormhole. And wormholes didn't just appear on their own. He adjusted his ship's position and waited. The energy readings grew stronger. The fabric of space itself seemed to ripple like water. Then he saw it. A ship emerged from the impossible tier in reality. It was huge, bigger than any vessel Minu had ever seen. The hull was dark metal, covered in scars and burns from what looked like countless battles. Strange symbols were painted along its side in a language the galaxy had almost forgotten. Minu's computer translated the writing: USSV Perseverance Explorer Class Earth United Fleet. His hands shook as he recorded everything. This was a human ship, a real human ship from before the silence. The Galactic Council would want to know about this immediately, but something stopped him from sending the message right away. Curiosity won over protocol. He moved his small scout ship closer. The massive vessel wasn't moving. It just floated there in the darkness, silent and still. No lights, no life signs, just dead metal drifting in space. Except it wasn't completely dead. Minu's scanner picked up a faint power signature deep inside the ship. Something was still active after all these years. His training told him to leave and report this to his superiors, but his instincts told him something else. If there was any chance of finding out what happened to humanity, it was now. He docked with the ghost ship's airlock. The moment he touched the hull, he felt a vibration. The ship was responding to his presence. Ancient systems were waking up. The airlock opened smoothly as if it had been waiting for him. Minu stepped inside with his weapon ready. The corridor beyond was dark but clean. No dust, no decay. It looked like the crew had just left yesterday. He walked through the empty halls, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Everything was preserved perfectly. Computer screens were dark but intact. Equipment was stored neatly. Even the air smelled recycled and fresh, which should have been impossible after 20,000 years. "Where is everyone?" he said aloud, his voice swallowed by the emptiness. He followed the power signature deeper into the ship. It led him to a massive chamber in the vessel's core. When he entered, his breath caught in his throat. Thousands of pods lined the walls, cryogenic pods, and the monitors on each one showed active status lights, green lights. They were still running. Minu approached the nearest pod and wiped frost from its viewing window. Inside was a woman. She looked young, maybe 30 years old. Her body was covered in scars, old wounds that had healed long ago. The pod's display showed her name: Commander, Ship's Captain. He stood there frozen in indecision. Should he wake her? Should he leave and get help? Before he could decide, the pod began to hiss. Its wake cycle had started on its own. The woman's eyes moved beneath her closed eyelids. Her fingers twitched. The pod opened with a rush of cold air, and she gasped, drawing in her first breath in what must have been. Minu stepped back, not sure what to expect. The woman's eyes opened. They were sharp and alert, scanning the room instantly. When she saw him, she didn't show fear or confusion. She looked focused, like a soldier. "Did we make it?" she asked. Her voice was rough from disuse but clear. "Is Earth safe?" Minu didn't know what to say. How could he tell her the truth? "You're awake," he managed. "You've been asleep for a very long time." Sat up in the pod. Her body moved smoothly, adapting to gravity as if she'd only slept for a few hours instead of centuries. She looked at him with growing concern. "Who are you? Where's my crew? What's the status of the mission?" "My name is Minu. I'm a scout from the survey fleet. I found your ship near Jupiter's orbit. You've been gone for 20,000 years." Stared at him. For a moment he saw something break in her eyes. Then she pushed it down, buried it deep, and her expression became hard again. 20,000 years, she repeated slowly. Then it took longer than we calculated. The time dilation was worse than projected. She stood up from the pod, testing her legs. "I need to contact Earth immediately. Where's the nearest relay station?" Minu felt his throat tighten. "Commander, I need to tell you something. Earth isn't what you remember, it's—" "Just tell me," she interrupted. "I've been a soldier my whole life. I can handle bad news." "Earth is dead. The whole planet, it's frozen. The sun is dying. There are no humans left anywhere in the galaxy. Your species has been extinct for nearly 20,000 years. We thought you all died out naturally. Climate collapse, maybe a pandemic. The records aren't clear because your last transmissions just stopped." His face went pale. She grabbed the edge of the pod to steady herself. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she walked past him to a computer terminal and pressed her hand against it. The screen lit up, responding to her touch. "Computer, access quantum archives. Authorization 77 Alpha." The screen flickered. Data began flowing across it in streams of light. Eyes moved rapidly as she read information only she could understand. Minu watched her face change from grief to shock to something else. Determination. "They didn't die," she said quietly. "They uploaded themselves." "What?" "My people, they didn't go extinct. They digitized their consciousness and launched it into space. 11 billion human minds traveling as data streams toward the Andromeda galaxy." She turned to face him. "We need to find them. We need to bring them home." Minu realized in that moment that everything was about to change. The galaxy thought humanity was dead, but they were wrong. And this woman, this ghost from 20,000 years ago, was going to prove it. "I need to wake my crew," said. "And then I need you to tell me everything about what the galaxy has become in our absence." She walked toward the other pods, her hands already working the controls. Minu stood there and watched as history came back to life, one frozen soldier at a time. The silence of 20,000 years was about to end. Stood in front of the main on the bridge of the Perseverance. She had been awake for 3 days now. 3 days of learning that everything she knew was gone. 3 days of grief that she couldn't let herself fully feel because there was too much work to do. On the screen was Earth, her home. The planet that billions of humans had called their birthplace for millions of years. It looked nothing like the world she remembered. The oceans were frozen solid. The continents were buried under kilometers of ice. The sun that once gave life to everything had dimmed to a weak orange glow. Cities that used to shine with light were dark and dead beneath the frost. "Show me the recordings," she said to Minu. He had stayed with her, helping her understand this new galaxy. He stood beside her now, his face full of sympathy. "Are you sure you want to see this?" "I need to know what happened." Minu activated the historical records. The screen showed Earth 19,000 years ago. The planet was already dying. The cities were empty. No people walked the streets. But the infrastructure was still running. Automated systems kept the lights on and the machines working. Then the transmission started. It was a message from the last human government, broadcast to the entire solar system. "This is the final address from the United Earth Council," a woman's voice said, recognized her. It was President, the leader who had ordered the 12 explorer ships to launch. "To any who might find this message in the future, know that humanity has not died. We have evolved. We have transcended." The message explained everything. In its absence, Earth scientists had achieved something impossible. They had learned how to digitize human consciousness completely. not just copying it, but actually transferring the mind into a quantum computer network. Faced with the dying sun and the approaching threat of the convergence, humanity made a choice. Every living person on Earth volunteered to upload their minds into the noosphere, a massive quantum system. Then they launched it into space on light-speed data streams, heading toward the Andromeda galaxy where they could start over. They left, whispered, they all left. The transmission says they waited as long as they could, Minu said gently. But the convergence was coming. The explorer ships were supposed to return first with a way to stop it, but you didn't make it back in time. Closed her eyes. The 12 ships, 12 crews sent beyond the galaxy to find a way to close the cosmic rift that threatened everything. She had commanded one of those ships, and they had failed to return when humanity needed them most. "How many of my crew are awake?" she asked, changing the subject before the guilt could overwhelm her. 300 so far. The rest will need a few more days. The cryogenic systems are old but still functional. Good, wake them all. I need everyone operational. Over the next week, the Perseverance came fully alive. Engineers fixed damaged systems. Scientists analyzed the data about what happened to Earth. Soldiers trained in the ship's gymnasium, keeping their skills sharp, and planned their next move. One of the key crew members was the ship's chief engineer. She was brilliant, barely 25 years old when she went into sleep. Now she was the same age but living in a completely different era. "Commander, I've got the long-range scanners working," reported, "and I found something." "Show me." Brought up a star map. A faint signal pulsed in the darkness of space, far from any star system. "That's a quantum signature, the same type of technology the noosphere uses. I think I found them." His heart jumped. The uploaded humans, they made it to Andromeda. "No, that's the problem. The signal is coming from dark space between galaxies, and it's not moving. Commander, I think they're stuck. The noosphere never made it to its destination. It's been frozen out there for 20,000 years." The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. 11 billion human minds, conscious but trapped, unable to move or act, suspended in an eternal moment. It was a fate worse than death. "Can we reach them?" asked. "Yes, but there's another problem. The noosphere is incomplete. The data stream is corrupted. Maybe 10% of the original upload is missing. A billion people might be lost forever." Felt rage building inside her. Her people had suffered so much. They had tried to survive, to escape, to find a new home, and they had been trapped in digital hell for 20. "We're going to get them back," she said firmly. "All of them. We're going to bring humanity home." But first, they needed to find the other explorer ships. The Perseverance couldn't do this alone. According to the mission files, 12 ships had launched. One of them had to have found a solution to the convergence problem. That knowledge was their only hope. Ordered the crew to search for the other vessels. Using the ancient tracking protocols, they located 3 ships. The Indomitable had crashed on a rogue planet far from any star. The Discovery was drifting in the Horsehead Nebula, its engines dead. And the Endeavour was broadcasting a distress signal from near a black hole's event horizon. "We start with the Indomitable," decided. "If it crashed, the crew might still be alive and sleep. We need every person we can get." The journey took 2 weeks. During that time, had to deal with the Galactic Council. They had noticed the human ship moving through their territory. They sent messages demanding explanations. Director, the leader of the council, was cautious but not hostile. He was an species with compound eyes and a logical mind. He contacted directly. "Commander, your presence here raises many questions. We offer assistance if you need it, but we also need to understand your intentions." Looked at the alien on the screen. He seemed sincere, but she had learned long ago not to trust anyone too quickly. "We're searching for our people, Director. That's all. We're not here to threaten anyone or claim territory. We just want to bring our lost ones home. And where is home for humanity now? Earth is uninhabitable. We'll figure that out when the time comes. For now, we focus on the rescue. Seem to accept this. If you need resources or support, the Council can provide them. In exchange, we would appreciate learning about your technology. The systems on your ship are far beyond our current capabilities. No, said flatly. Our technology stays with us. Humanity learned the hard way what happens when civilizations gain too much power too quickly. We won't make that mistake again. The conversation ended coldly. Minu, who had been listening, looked worried. Commander, the Council has power. Hundreds of species, thousands of ships. If they decide you're a threat, then they'll learn why humanity survived for as long as we did, interrupted. We're not starting a war, Minu, but we're not rolling over either. My people have been through hell. I'm not going to let anyone stop us from bringing them home. The Perseverance reached the rogue planet. It was a frozen world drifting through the void with no sun to warm it. On its dark surface, they found the wreckage of the Indomitable. The ship had hit hard, but the central structure was intact. Most importantly, the bay had survived. Led a team down to the surface. They cut through the damaged hull and found what they were looking for. Rows of cryogenic pods, still humming with power. Start the revival process, ordered. The first pod opened. Inside was Captain, commander of the Indomitable. He woke up gasping, his eyes wild until he saw. Is that you? Did we succeed? Wake up first, old friend. Then we'll talk about success and failure. But when was fully conscious and understood the situation, he had news that changed everything. We found it, he said. We found the way to close the convergence, but you're not going to like the cost. The crew of the Indomitable stood on the bridge of the Perseverance. Captain looked tired, even after days of recovery. His crew of 2,800 filled the ship's halls, joining forces with his people. But the reunion was not joyful. The news he brought weighed on everyone's minds. Tell them what you told me, said to the assembled officers. Pulled up a holographic display. It showed the convergence, the massive tier in reality at the edge of the universe. From it, energy beings poured out, consuming entire star systems by erasing them from existence. My team spent 15 years studying the rift. We mapped it, tested it, tried everything we could think of to close it. We finally found a solution, but it requires a sacrifice. He manipulated the display. A ship appeared entering the rift. A vessel has to fly into the convergence carrying a quantum singularity bomb. The explosion will collapse the rift from inside, but the ship and everyone on board will be erased from existence. Not just killed, erased, gone from every timeline, no trace that they ever existed. The room fell silent. The Perseverance's tactical officer was the first to speak. So one of the 12 explorer ships has to die. That's what you're saying. Yes, that's what our mission always was. 12 ships went out knowing one might not come back. We were supposed to close the rift, then return to Earth together. But Earth is gone now, and we still have a job to do. Looked around at her crew. They had all volunteered for this mission 20,000 years ago. They knew the risks. But learning that your entire species had abandoned you, that you had no home to return to, changed things. We'll deal with that decision later, said. First, we need to find the other ships and wake everyone up. Then we rescue the noosphere. We save our people before we worry about closing the rift. Stepped forward. She had been working on the quantum communication systems. Commander, I managed to make contact with the noosphere. I spoke with someone inside. Everyone turned to look at her, felt her heart race. Who? My grandmother. She uploaded when she was 92 years old. Inside the noosphere, she's been frozen in the same moment for 20,000 years. She's aware but can't move, can't speak to others, can't do anything. She said it's like being trapped in a dream where time doesn't flow. His voice cracked. She begged me to help them, all of them. They're still conscious in there, Commander. 11 billion minds frozen and aware for 200 centuries. We have to bring them back. Made her decision. We will. Can we restore them to physical bodies? Maybe. The explorer ships have exotic matter cores. If we convert those cores into quantum matrices, we might be able to transfer consciousness back into cloned bodies. But it would destroy the ships in the process. How many ships would we need? All 12. The amount of exotic matter required is massive. And Commander, if we use all 12 ships to restore the noosphere, we won't have any left to close the convergence. The impossible choice was becoming clear. Save humanity or save the galaxy. We find all the ships first, said firmly, then we decide. Over the next 3 months, the combined crews of the Perseverance and Indomitable searched for the others. They found the Discovery drifting in the Horsehead Nebula, its crew of 3,000 still in sleep. They rescued the Endeavour from near the black hole, though radiation had damaged many of its systems. One by one, the Ghost Fleet returned. The Valiant, the Defiant, the Resolute, 8 ships total with over 18,000 crew members awakened from their ancient sleep. But 4 ships were lost forever. The Infinite had collided with an asteroid. The Pathfinder had fallen into a star. The Horizon and the Navigator were simply gone, no trace of them anywhere in the galaxy. With 8 ships and 8 captains, called a council meeting. They gathered in the Perseverance's main hall, all the command staff together for the first time in 20,000 years. Captain laid out the problem. We have 3 options. 1. We abandon the noosphere and use 1 ship to close the convergence. 2. We use all 8 ships to restore our people and hope the convergence doesn't reach the Milky Way for a few million years. 3. We try to do both somehow. The debate raged for hours. Some captains argued for saving the noosphere first. Others said the mission to close the convergence was more important than individual lives. Stood up, his voice cutting through the noise. We're asking the wrong question. This isn't about ships or missions. It's about what humanity stands for. We went on this mission to save lives. If we abandon 11 billion of our own people to save a galaxy that forgot we existed, what does that make us? It makes us responsible, another captain shot back. The convergence will kill trillions, not just our people but every species in this galaxy. How can we choose 11 billion over trillions? Listen to them argue. She thought about her people, trapped in digital nightmares for 20. She thought about the galaxy, full of new life that had risen after humanity's fall. Both deserved to live. We vote, she said finally. All 18,000 of us. Every awakened crew member gets a say in what we do next. This isn't a military decision anymore. It's a human one. The vote took a week to organize. Every person on every ship cast their choice. The results were close but clear. Option 3 won. They would try to do both. Use 7 ships to restore the noosphere and 1 ship to close the convergence. The next question was harder. Which ship would take the suicide mission? Every captain volunteered immediately. Every single one said their ship should be the sacrifice. The argument started again, louder this time. Ended it with a simple statement. The Perseverance will go. We were the first to return. We'll be the first to finish the mission. Her crew didn't protest. They had expected this. Nodded quietly, wiped tears from her eyes but stood straight. They were ready to die for this. But before they left, they had one more task. Doctor, the chief scientist on the Perseverance, had been going through the Galactic Council's restricted archives. Minyu had given her access, feeling that humanity deserved to know the truth about their own extinction. What found changed everything. She called an emergency meeting with all the captains. Her face was pale with anger. Humanity didn't go silent because of the noosphere project. We were sabotaged. There was a first contact incident 20,000 years ago that none of us knew about. An alien species came to Earth while we were gone. They saw our technology, our weapons, our expansion into space, and they decided we were too dangerous to exist. She pulled up files, evidence of a biological weapon designed to corrupt Earth's infrastructure. That spread through the planet's systems, causing cascading failures. It forced humanity into the desperate choice to upload themselves or die. They committed genocide, said. They killed our world and forced our people to flee, and the species that did it is the same species that now leads the Galactic Council. Slammed his fist on the table. Director's people, they murdered our planet. Felt rage burning in her chest. She thought about all the times had offered help, speaking softly about cooperation and understanding. He knew. His people knew what they had done. "What do we do?" asked. Looked at her fellow captains. They were all thinking the same thing. They had the power to destroy their weapons could crack planets. One ship could wipe out the species that had killed humanity. But that would make them the monsters they had feared. "We confront them," said. "We make them face what they did, and then we decide if the galaxy deserves our sacrifice." The Ghost Fleet turned toward the Galactic Council headquarters. 8 human warships, ancient and powerful, moving with purpose through space. Director watched them approach with growing fear. He knew why they were coming, and he knew that humanity's silence was about to end in the worst possible way. The Galactic Council chamber was the largest room had ever seen. It could hold representatives from 800 different species, each with their own section designed for their specific biology. Right now, every seat was filled. The entire galaxy was watching. Stood in the center with 7 other human captains behind her. They wore their old military uniforms, cleaned and pressed. On her shoulder was the patch of Earth, a blue and green world that no longer existed. Director sat in the central position, his compound eyes reflecting the light. Around him, hundreds of alien faces watched the humans with mixtures of curiosity, fear, and suspicion. Commander began, "You requested this assembly. The council is prepared to listen." Didn't waste time with pleasantries. She activated a holographic projector. The air filled with images of Earth 20,000 years ago. Beautiful, alive, full of cities and people. Then she showed what came next. The virus spreading through the infrastructure, the cascading failures, the desperate choice to upload consciousness or die. "This is what happened to my people," said, her voice carrying through the chamber. "We didn't die of natural causes. We were murdered. Someone came to Earth, saw what we had built, and decided to destroy us." Murmurs rippled through the council. Many representatives looked shocked, others looked confused, but remained still. Turned to face him directly. "Your people did this, Director. The design, your ancestors released it on Earth. We have proof." She displayed the evidence. Files from the archives that had uncovered, plans for the biological weapon, records of the first contact team that had visited Earth. Their recommendation: eliminate the human threat before they become too powerful. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted questions. Some demanded explanations from, others called for investigations. The noise was deafening. Stood slowly. His mandibles clicked together in a gesture that meant resignation. "Yes," he said simply. The chamber fell silent. "Yes, it's true. My ancestors encountered humanity 20,000 years ago. They saw your weapons, your expansion, your potential, and they were afraid. They believed that if humanity continued to grow, you would dominate the galaxy. So they made a choice. A terrible choice. They destroyed your world to save what they believed was the greater good." Felt her hands curl into fists. "You admit it." "I do. The records exist in our deepest archives. It was kept secret, a shame we carried for. When humanity vanished, we thought we had gotten away with it. We built the council, created laws against such actions, tried to be better, but we cannot undo what was done." "No, you can't," said coldly. "You murdered 11 billion people and scattered the survivors across time and space. You erased an entire civilization because you were afraid. Stepped forward. We have the power to do the same to you. One ship could destroy you. Should we be afraid of you too? Should we strike first? The tension in the room became suffocating. Every representative understood what was happening. The humans had returned with technology beyond anything the Council possessed. They could start a war that would tear the galaxy apart. But didn't flinch. You could destroy us. You have every right to seek revenge. If you choose that path, we cannot stop you. But I ask you to consider what that would make you. Would you become the very thing my ancestors feared? Would you prove them right? Stared at him. She hated that he was right. If they wiped out they would be no better than the ones who had killed Earth. We didn't come here for revenge, she said finally. We came here for truth. The galaxy needs to know what happened to humanity. They need to understand that we didn't just die out. We were killed, and we survived anyway. She turned to address the full council. My people have been through hell. We've been asleep for 20,000 years while the galaxy moved on without us. We woke up to find our home dead and our species scattered. But we're not here to conquer. We're here to rebuild. What do you want from us? Another representative asked. Nothing, said. We'll save our people ourselves. We'll restore the noosphere and bring them back to physical existence. We'll close the convergence and save this galaxy from the threat you don't even know exists. And we'll do it without your help. Commander, wait, Minyu stepped forward. He had been standing at the edge of the chamber listening. You don't have to do this alone. The Council can help. Resources, ships, knowledge, we want to make amends. Looked at him. He had been kind to her from the start. He wasn't responsible for what his ancestors' allies had done. Can you, she challenged, can the Council really help, or will you just get in the way? Minyu turned to the assembly. We can help with the restoration process. Our medical facilities can grow the clones needed for the noosphere transfer. Our ships can transport resources. Our scientists can work with yours. Commander, humanity doesn't have to bear this burden alone anymore. The offer hung in the air, looked at her fellow captains, nodded slightly, looked hopeful, even seemed to consider it. If we accept help, said slowly, it will be on our terms. Human technology stays under human control. We make the decisions about our people's future, and they will be placed under Council observation. If they ever threaten another species this way again, there will be consequences. Bowed his head, agreed. The Council voted. By a narrow margin, they approved the partnership. Humanity would receive support for the restoration project. In return, they would share defensive technology only and help close the convergence. Over the next 2 years, the work began. It was the largest undertaking in galactic history. 7 human ships docked at massive construction facilities. Their exotic matter cores were carefully converted into quantum matrices, the substrate that could house human consciousness in physical form. Cloning facilities worked around the clock. DNA samples from the noosphere data were used to grow new bodies. Each one was a perfect replica of the person's original form, young and healthy. Jinnah, the communications officer from the Perseverance, was the first to successfully transfer a consciousness. She worked with scientists, teaching them the delicate process. The first human to return to physical existence was Dr. She had been a neuroscientist, 94 years old when she uploaded. Now she opened her eyes in a 25-year-old body, gasping as she felt air in her lungs for the first time in 20,000 years. It worked, she whispered. Then she started crying, not from sadness but from relief, from joy, from the simple miracle of having a body again. News spread through the noosphere. Hope ignited. People who had been frozen in digital hell began to believe they might actually be saved. But the process was slow. Each transfer took time. Each body had to be grown carefully. Calculated that restoring all 11 billion humans would take at least 50 years, even with the Council's help. We can do it, said. We've already waited 20,000 years. We can wait 50 more. But there was still the matter of the convergence. The rift was growing. Slowly but steadily, it was expanding toward the Milky Way. If left unchecked, it would reach the galaxy in less than 10,000 years. The Perseverance and her crew prepared for their final mission. While the other 7 ships were dismantled for the restoration process, its vessel remained intact, armed, ready. They would give the galaxy 10,000 years of safety. Time for humanity to fully restore itself. Time for the other species to prepare if the convergence couldn't be permanently sealed. But first, wanted to see the beginning of humanity's return. She wanted to know that her sacrifice meant something. She stood in a medical bay and watched as the 100th restored human woke up. Then the 1,000th. Then the 10,000th. Each one was a miracle. Each one was a victory against the species that had tried to erase them. Minyu found her there one day, watching the process. "You don't have to do this, you know," he said. "Someone else could take the Perseverance. You could stay and see your people fully restored." "No," said, "this is my mission. My crew signed up for this. We knew one ship might not come back. It has to be us." "Why?" "Because someone has to protect what we're building here. Someone has to make sure humanity gets a real second chance. And if that means erasing myself from existence, then that's what I'll do." She looked at him. "Besides, the galaxy needs to remember what humanity is capable of. Not just the weapons and the ships, but the sacrifice. We'll save this galaxy and we won't ask for thanks." The day came when the Perseverance was ready to depart. The ship was loaded with the quantum singularity bomb. The crew had said their goodbyes, stood on the bridge one last time looking at Earth through The planet was warming. The ice was beginning to melt. In a few centuries, it might be habitable again. Humans were already planning to return home. "Set course for the convergence," ordered. "Maximum speed." The Perseverance turned and jumped into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, humanity continued its rebirth. Ahead of them, a battle that would erase them all from history waited. The journey to the edge of the universe took 6 months. The Perseverance traveled faster than any ship in galactic history, pushing its ancient engines to their limits. And her crew of 3,200 spent the time preparing for what was coming. Worked on the quantum singularity bomb, making sure every circuit was perfect. Trained the crew in emergency protocols, though they all knew there would be no emergency to survive. Jinnah recorded messages for the people they were leaving behind, final words from those about to be forgotten. Walked through the ship's corridors every day. She talked to her crew. She thanked them for their service. She made sure each person knew that their choice mattered. On the bridge, Minyu sat in the observer's chair. He had insisted on coming, refusing to make this journey alone. "You should have stayed," told him. "You'll be erased too if you stay on this ship." "I know," Minyu said, "but I was the one who found you, the one who woke you up. I feel responsible for everything that happened after. If I'm going to be responsible, I should see it through to the end." "You're not responsible for this. No one forced my hand." "Maybe not, but I watched you bring humanity back from the dead. I watched you choose to save the galaxy instead of taking revenge. That changed me. It changed how I see the universe. I want to be part of this, even if it means no one will remember." Looked at him for a long moment, then she nodded, "Thank you." As they approached the convergence, the ship's sensors went wild. Space itself was breaking down at the rift. Reality fractured into impossible shapes. Energy beings moved through the tier, vast and incomprehensible. Analysis ordered. Studied the readings. The rift is larger than we calculated. It's grown significantly in the past 20,000 years. Commander, if we don't close it now, it will reach the Milky Way in less than 5,000 years, not 10,000. That changed the timeline. Humanity would barely have time to fully restore itself before the convergence arrived. They had to succeed here today, or everything they had sacrificed would mean nothing. "Prepare the bomb," said. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. The quantum singularity bomb was armed and loaded into a special containment field. When it detonated inside the rift, it would create a controlled collapse that would seal the tier permanently. But first, they had to get close enough, and the Convergence didn't want them near. Energy beings noticed the ship. They moved toward it, massive forms that existed partially outside normal space. When they touched the Perseverance's shields, the ship shook violently. "Shields at 70%, reported. "We need to move faster." Push the engines harder. The ship screamed through space, diving toward the rift. More energy beings converged on them. The shields dropped to 50%, then 30%. "We're not going to make it," said, her voice tight with fear. Made a decision. Divert all power to engines and the containment field. Drop shields completely. We go in fast or we don't go in at all. "Commander, that's suicide before we even reach the detonation point." "I know, do it anyway." The shields dropped. The ship surged forward with incredible speed. Energy beings tore at the hull, ripping through metal and systems. Explosions rocked the corridors. People died in the darkness as life support failed in sections of the ship. But they kept moving, kept pushing toward the rift. The Perseverance crossed into the Convergence itself. Reality stopped making sense. The crew saw impossible things, universes being born and dying in seconds, timelines splitting and merging, beings so vast that entire galaxies were specks in their perception. "Deploy the bomb," ordered. His hands shook as she released the containment field. The quantum singularity bomb floated free from the ship, drifting toward the heart of the rift. 30 seconds to detonation," she announced. Opened a channel to the galaxy, her final transmission. She didn't know if anyone would receive it across the dimensional chaos, but she had to try. "This is Commander of the USSV Perseverance. To humanity, you were silent for 20,000 years, but you never stopped being human. You survived. You adapted. You came back. I'm proud to have been part of your story, even if this is where mine ends." She paused, looking at her crew. They stood at their stations, brave even in the face of annihilation. "To the galaxy, we didn't return for glory or revenge. We returned to protect, to serve, to ensure that life continues. Remember that humanity fought for you, even when you didn't know we existed." Counted down the final seconds. 10, 9, 8. Closed her eyes. She thought about Earth, green and beautiful in her memories. She thought about the 11 billion humans being restored, one by one. She thought about the future they would build. 5, 4, 3. "It was worth it," whispered. 2, 1. The bomb detonated. The explosion was unlike anything in the physical universe. It created a singularity that consumed itself, collapsing inward and pulling the rift with it. The tier between dimensions sealed, reality rewriting itself to close the wound. The Perseverance and everyone on board were erased, not destroyed, not killed, simply removed from existence across all timelines. No records, no memories, no evidence they had ever been real. Except for the ones who were close enough to the quantum event to remember. Minu's last thought, before he ceased to exist, was that it had been an honor. 50 years later, Earth bloomed again. The ice had melted. Oceans filled the basins. Grass grew in the valleys. Trees reached toward the sky. 11 billion humans had been restored to physical bodies. They built cities. They had children. They spread across the solar system and claimed new worlds. Director, now an old being near the end of his life, stood at a ceremony on Earth. They were dedicating a memorial to the humans who had saved the galaxy. But there was a problem. No one could remember who those humans were. The records existed showing that 12 ships had launched, but only 7 had returned. The missing 5 crews were blank spaces in history. Yet some people remembered fragments, remembered talking to someone important, a leader, someone who had confronted him about the past, but he couldn't recall their face or name. Doctor, now serving as Earth's chief scientist, felt a strange sadness when she looked at the memorial. Someone had saved her. Someone had brought her back from digital death. She knew that, but she couldn't remember who. They built the memorial anyway. In orbit around the sun, where ancient sensors detected a quantum anomaly that shouldn't exist, they constructed a ship. A replica of something that felt important, though no one knew exactly what it was supposed to look like. On the hull, they wrote an inscription. To those who came home to silence and left in silence. To those who fought for a galaxy that could not remember them. To those who kept vigil while we slept. We do not know your names, but we know what you did. This is the vigil we keep for those who kept vigil for us. Thousands of humans gathered for the dedication ceremony. Among them was, now an elderly man, one of the 7 captains who had returned alive. He stood in front of the memorial and wept, though he couldn't explain why. Somewhere in the quantum foam of reality, something echoed. A name, a whisper, a memory trying to exist against the laws of physics. The universe tried to erase it again, but it persisted, just for a moment, just long enough. On Earth, a young girl asked her grandmother about the memorial. Why did they do it, Grandma? Why did they erase themselves to save us? The grandmother, one of the newly restored humans, thought about the question. She didn't know the answer, but she knew what felt true. Because that's what humanity does, she said. When the choice is between ourselves and everyone else, we choose everyone else. That's what makes us human. The girl looked up at the memorial ship, silent and empty against the stars. I hope they knew it mattered, she said quietly. Her grandmother smiled. I think they did. In the depths of space, the convergence remained sealed. The rift was gone. The galaxy was safe. Life would continue for billions of years, countless civilizations rising and falling, never knowing how close they had come to annihilation. Humanity rebuilt. They never forgot that they had been silent for 20,000 years. They never forgot that they had returned against impossible odds. They never forgot that they had survived. And though they couldn't remember the names or faces of the 3,200 people who had saved them all, they remembered the lesson. Silence can be powerful, sacrifice can be meaningful, and sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who are forgotten. Humanity was silent for 20,000 years, but their return had changed everything. And though the universe had erased the evidence, the truth remained written in the stars. They had come back, they had protected, they had saved. And that was enough. The memorial ship floated in orbit, a testament to the forgotten. Inside its empty halls there were no ghosts, no spirits, just the quiet dignity of a sacrifice made without expectation of thanks. Somewhere in a place beyond physics, beyond time, beyond existence itself, Commander and her crew rested. They had finished their mission. They had brought humanity home. And the galaxy would never forget, even if it could never remember. The vigil was complete.